Hey, welcome back to the Paddock Pulse Podcast. My name is Leah O'Mara.
And I'm Leah Alessandroni.
We put this podcast together just to give you an insider's view of a sport and an industry that we love so much in the thoroughbred industry. So what if we told you that thoroughbreds are extremely versatile and make great riding horses and partners in addition to racehorses? I know it's a bit of a misconception that the thoroughbred doesn't actually make a great riding horse and doesn't have much use outside of racing. And that is completely false. So that is what our episode is about today. Leah?
Yeah, we talked a little bit in previous episodes about how much people in this industry just really come to it first and foremost through their love of horses. And there's this misconception that horses are commodities and that they get tossed after they're done or retired from racing. And there's literally couldn't be farther from the truth. There's so much happening in aftercare, and really just because thoroughbreds are amazing and, like you said, versatile, ultimate sport horses, to be honest with you. So our guest today is a very accomplished retrainer of thoroughbreds off the track, but also is connected to the track. And this is going to be a really fun episode. I'm so excited. So please welcome Alison O'Dwyer. Hey,
Hi.
Allie.
Hey, girl.
Hey, happy to be here.
So we were talking a little in the intro about how there's this misconception that after horses are done racing, they kind of just get tossed. And I'm so excited to talk to you today because I think your story with this horse we're going to talk about particularly is not really that unique, but in some ways it is. And I think it's so exciting to see horses of this caliber going on to do other things. So why don't we just jump right into it? Why don't you just tell us how you first met Sibelius, how you're connected to him?
And a little bit about yourself.
Oh yeah, also please tell us about yourself.
So it's all about Sibelius, and that's okay. That's the world I live in. It definitely is. But I have a eventing background, which is very friendly to thoroughbreds. Thoroughbreds often thrive in eventing, and I was lucky enough to have a coach and mentor in Lexington, Kentucky, who's known for her thoroughbreds, and she's the one that really introduced me to the X racehorses because I came from Colorado where that was not as familiar. I actually did have thoroughbreds eventing in Colorado, but I didn't understand the racing aspect as much. Like I had a Montana bred that ran and raced in Montana. I didn't know that was a thing, but it was, yeah. So, but I wasn't close to the racing, so I didn't comprehend it until I came to Kentucky and worked with Dorothy Crowell, used to be Dorothy Trapp. So she really introduced me to the X racehorses and what they're capable of, and I really credit her to that, and obviously living in Kentucky. And Kentucky's also where I met my husband, who's a trainer, Jerry O'Dwyer, or Jeremiah formally, and he's Irish and a trainer. And to be fair, most people think I get all of my horses from him, and that's actually not the case. I normally go out and source them on my own, and sometimes they are through common friends in the industry that I know through him. But Sibelius is only really the second one I've had in full training from my husband. So that's kind of a nice tidbit. Everyone assumes all of them come from him, but they don't. Either the timing doesn't work out, or, they're mostly it's just always come down to timing. I either already have a horse when he has one to rehome, or, the opposite. But yeah, so Sibelius came into training with Jerry. I know he did not know the owner, Delia Nash and June Park, before he met Sibelius, somebody that they knew in common. I wish I could remember the name to give credit, but somebody in Lexington connected them and recommended that Delia send Sibelius to train with Jerry. And so whoever that is, I'm very thankful. I'll have to get that name from my husband after the fact.
A great recommendation, obviously.
We'll give them credit in the show notes. We like you.
Exactly. Yeah. And, they're just the most incredible owners, and they do, some bloodstock stuff, some pin hooking stuff. They had never really raced horses, but they have their own farms, and they're in the industry in other ways. At least Delia, that's the case for her. Sibelius was really her first racehorse to own. She fared pretty well as far as that's concerned. And it's just because they brought him to the sale and he was RNA, I think twice. And he had a little blip on an x-ray that just freaked everybody out. And, people were saying it could be a problem or it couldn't be a problem. And she was finally like, screw it, I'm going to keep him and race him myself and show the world it's not going to be a problem.
And that's a topic for a future episode, because that is so common. And I think it would be really fun to get a list of other top class horses and favorites that had little little things. Keep going about.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a, and then after the fact, he wins a few big races and stakes races, and the phone is calling and people are trying to buy him. And she's like, you had your chance.
Love that. I love that.
Yeah. So anyway, so we were lucky, and he took a little time. I could go back and look. I'm not sure if he ran as a 2-year-old, but they gave him time when he needed it. Nothing major, just little blips as young horses, and then he got bigger and stronger and started to do really well. And he's literally raced from New York to California and all the way to Dubai twice, and we just love him. The family pet, but obviously he's more than that as well. And Delia loves him as well, and so does June. Everyone who rides him and meets him loves him. He's a gelding, which probably helps. He's extremely cuddly, and for the longest time he was the only horse I would want to hot walk or just walk in the shed row at all. Like, I was like, oh no, I mean, I'm not touching those dragons, but I'll walk Sibelius, the graded stakes winner. I'll walk him because he's so good.
You mentioned Dubai. Can you give us a little bit, because that is so far from so many of ours perspective of racing. Give us a little insight in that trip for you guys. He was in the grade 1 Golden Shaheen, and you guys got to go over with him and celebrate that.
Yeah, it was incredible. I would say we're kind of addicts now. We tried with another horse, a last minute push this year to see if we could get there, and obviously it didn't pan out. But we love it. They're incredibly hospitable, and the atmosphere is unbelievable. It's amazing. And yes, like I said, I think we would be happy to go back in any capacity with another horse or whatever. We really enjoy it, and it was very exciting and just very unique. And it's so fun to be that far away, and you see people from Kentucky. Jerry saw people from England and Ireland that he knew, and it's just a big meeting spot for everyone. And he shocked the world by winning, the first year he went out there, and it felt not real. It didn't feel real, and it was just amazing. He had the number 1 jockey in the world on his back, and we didn't manage to get it done the second time, but we were just happy to be there and happy to have a nice, sound, happy horse after the race the second time.
That's amazing. Speaking of sound, happy horse, when did you guys start talking about his life after racing? Were you already in Dubai, basically when he's ready to be retired, I love this horse, or when you were hot walking him, what is that, the history of you eventually getting him into your barn?
Well, we were not really allowed to talk about it, right? It was something that was in the air, but yeah, the first year we were in Dubai, a fellow Makeover friend who does racing publicity and articles as well. He was like, so is this your makeover horse? I was like, shh, we're not allowed to talk about it. My husband's head will explode if I talk about that already. He's a gelding, he's sound, he's a sprinter, he could go for a while, so, but, I really was obviously hopeful, and, it's just great because my husband does help me with some of the off the track horses, and he knows Sibelius. So, especially in these beginning stages, we're really working as a team on the horse. Once Sibelius gets farther along in his show horse training, he'll move farther away from that racetrack riding style. And what, Jerry will get to take him on trail rides, but other than that, he'll be a show pony here soon.
That's so neat. So you're telling me Jerry gets on him post racing in the riding ring and gets this happy medium training happening?
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
How is that different from what you'll do as he gets further away from?
Well, I just mean since we're in a new environment, right, we're riding him out in the field, we're hacking him around the neighborhood, and just things like that, to where I don't know the horse. I can have Jerry do those things for the first few times. So yeah, so that way, as Sibelius says, literally I come across alligators. So I've never seen an alligator before. Jerry can be on his back for the first time.
Oh my gosh, what?
It's sort of, I'm not kidding. They're really, so there's things, or landscapers, we turn the corner and there's a guy on a 0 turn, at least Jerry can be there with him those first couple times to give him the confidence. And not that I couldn't do that, but I don't know him, so yeah. It's just been.
Jerry does ride him he, a lot of contact, he's kind of still riding him he was on the track.
Not really. He keeps him really slow. He doesn't make him go round or on the bit or any, he doesn't dressage ride him like I would necessarily, but he
Yeah.
knows like that I like quiet, toned down horses. So like in the field, he just knows what I like. So he'll kind of just ride him quiet and make sure he's good. And like I said, now I've basically taken over the ride already at this point. Those first few rides, and plus it's nice because Jerry's also a little bit nostalgic, so I think he likes to get on him. If it's a day where I'm rushing, he's like, "Oh, he'll get on Sibelius for me." So.
And he rode him at the track some, yeah. He galloped him and worked him some.
He galloped him a ton, yeah, a ton. He breezes him. He does, not that he never had anyone else on his back. He definitely did. We had work riders or the jockeys would come in and work him. Yeah, Jerry was obviously pretty particular, so he would do a lot of those rides himself.
That's so cool. And then to be able to see him into this next stage of life that is a little bit of a unique situation and just a really special, cool thing.
Yeah. Even my daughter who's 4, she loves to get on him on daddy's lap and she rides Sibelius fairly often as well. I'm like, it's funny. He's giving pony rides, which is probably not the most glamorous like after career, but we'll get him horse showing soon.
Are you kidding me? He's creating next generation fans. And I love that your 4-year-old can get on a thoroughbred, these real situations. And so tell me more about what you love about the breed. Like you're an accomplished trainer. You've won at the Makeover, the Thoroughbred Makeover. So tell us a little bit about what you love about the breed.
I love how smart they are. I love their brains. I really learned to appreciate that after working at a warm blood farm. Okay, I'm sorry. He just wants to say hi. Okay, we'll put him back on the ground now. I worked at a warm blood farm doing show jumpers, different kind of Belgian warm blood young horses from 3 to 6. It just made me miss my thoroughbreds. I mean, Thoroughbreds are so smart and they have this will to live and this, they know how to keep themselves out of trouble. I'm not saying there's not ones that don't, but they have this, if they fall down, they're probably going to get up and slow down and think about things. They're not going to get up and go faster, typically.
Wow, that's so really, really cool. And so when you were riding the warm bloods, they were less they wouldn't necessarily get it after they had a mistake. It took them longer.
Yeah, I just feel like the warm bloods, they mature later. Everybody knows that. They mature a lot later and they're not handled like the racehorses are handled, the babies, the yearlings, they're brought in, they're brushed, their feet are picked out, they're led every day. A lot of times, in the warm bloods, they are turned out in a field and not touched barely until they're 3 sometimes, so I think the amount of exposure the racehorses get, they see so much on the track, but also at the farms before they even get there. And they have a consistent schedule. So they're just a lot more mentally mature at younger ages. And I don't think I really knew that until I went and worked with, Belgian warm bloods every single day. And then I was like, I also owned an Irish horse too. I owned and evented an Irish horse and he made me miss the sensitivity of the thoroughbred. The thoroughbreds, they can respect a human. And sometimes my big Irish horse did not respect me at all. So I'm not a very big person. Sometimes the big guys don't, but I digress. You understand.
I love that you mentioned that they are just totally different types of horses. That's something that we've talked about a little in the past. And until you really spend a lot of time around thoroughbreds, I think that can be something that's really hard to really fully understand and grasp. You think a horse is a horse, but thoroughbreds have been purpose bred for so many years, hundreds and hundreds of years, coinciding with a lot of human history and with this one specific thing in mind. And they really are just a completely different breed from so many other breeds out there. And sometimes you're not a thoroughbred person and that's totally fine. Like you, I'm also not a warm blood person. I obviously made this my life's work to be around thoroughbreds because I love them so much, which I think is probably something that most of us in this industry can say. First and foremost, we're just thoroughbred fans. But yeah, I love that distinction. It really is unique. And until you get an opportunity to kind of really be involved with both really intimately, it can be maybe not super obvious.
For sure. Yeah. I always say that horse sports is like ball sports and you have a soccer ball or a football or a baseball and they're all balls, but they're completely different and they're for a specific purpose. And like you said, racehorses are specifically bred to race. And honestly, that's a good segue into I don't take much interest in my makeover horses' pedigrees, because I do really believe that pedigree might say something about racing, but it's not really going to say anything about my dressage horse at the makeover. So I try to really evaluate them as individuals and not come in with like a prejudice based off of their pedigree or anything.
Yeah. Do you
That's
have any
awesome.
do you have any advice for people who are retraining OTTBs? Any suggestions? But what would be the best advice you can give to somebody who's wanting to retrain?
Yeah, I would say like in the beginning, to take them kind of like I said, to really assess them as an individual. And sometimes for people, like not to take too much credit into how they were on the racetrack, like unless a horse has a seriously dangerous behavioral problem on the racetrack, like I don't want to know. Because I don't want to go in thinking, this horse was really sour, or this horse was a runaway, or this, because that's what that horse did on the racetrack. If I turn that horse out every day and I get on it in a field, or I lunge it first and I do this, the atmosphere is completely different. The daily schedule is completely different. I've had one of my first winners was from the Bulls barn. And I didn't even know this, but I had won the makeover and I sold it to a 13-year-old kid. And this was like a 17-hand horse. And I found out, at the bar one night, one of my rider friends was like, we used to draw straws because we hated riding that horse. He was a runaway. Like they couldn't jog him. They couldn't gallop him. He would just take off. And I was like, I just sold it to a 13-year-old kid, so I try not to like just kind of put my blinkers on and just assess what's in front of me and do what that horse needs, because they all are so different. Like they're so different when they come off the track.
That's amazing.
There's a big change, a big, just adjustment in all things in life. Their turnout schedule, their activity level, their feed, everything is totally changes. And you're right. They often do times, do a 360.
Yeah.
For sure.
What? I just lost my train of thought. I just find that so wild. Because I always want to know. And I've only done a few, but I'm like, so anything I need to look out for? You know what I mean? Like, and thankfully I've never had anything serious to like worry about, but I always thought I should know, but that's really comforting. That makes me, way more comfortable getting a horse in from, we don't know what they've been through, where they've been, but not to stress about it. Just start from the ground up. So you have been around, these OTTBs, retraining, reselling them as an industry. Have we done well in facilitating other trainers like yourself in this space? And also conversely, what can we as an industry do to be better? Like, do you have some ideas on both sides of that spectrum?
Yeah, I think that's a great conversation to have. It's something I've been having a lot with a couple of my friends recently. And I think the next stage is like to try to bring in language other than just like aftercare. Like, language that's not like these horses are rescues. Like they shouldn't be seen as like
tired. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very few of them are actual rescues. Some of them are, but the vast majority of them are not being rescued from the racetrack.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And these are not like second-class citizens, these aren't, so I think, I was talking today with my friend Blair King, like, we want to get away from that aftercare instead of just like, this is the next career and the next goal for these horses. Like, and these things can create, they can accomplish great goals beyond that. And, things like tip and take two and the makeover, they're a really good like starting place, but it's still like they're excluding the thoroughbreds out of like mainstream competition, so I think, if we could get even just a few like big owners to continue on to show jumping, eventing, even like dressage at some level, if they could go for that next goal. And I'm not saying like the makeover is a great goal, but that's 1 year. Like that's not enough, like what can we do beyond that and not, something bigger, mainstream, high performance, like in USEF, beyond that. Like I was saying, like, I would love to get like an aftercare. God, see, there's that word. That's not what I mean. Like
it's so ingrained though. It's so ingrained in the vernacular. It is really hard to change it for sure.
Yeah, but like a second career, I want to get these owners competing for second careers. I want to get these, like, I would love to find like a competition or something that could do like a like a cup. Like I want somebody to sponsor a horse and that they own to take it to a high level and compete against other racing connections that are doing the same thing. You know, maybe they just
I'm
yeah, like
obsessed with that. I am fully on board. You tell me when and where. I love
okay.
that.
But like, you know, something I was, you know, even initially I was like, maybe they do it alongside the makeover or they do it after the makeover, doesn't matter. But I think if you could get these people with this money to compete, right? Everybody likes competition, whether it's a financial incentive or just a really big trophy they can put in, you know, but like my horse won this show jumping competition and I supported it up to this level and it was successful. You know, if you could get them to see competition after the finish line, I think that would be huge for the industry because it wouldn't just be over for these owners. They would have something to look forward to. And if you could get it at a high level, that would be even better because the highest level you offer a competition like this, the longer the horse will have to be in training to get there. And then also the more value that horse will have long term, right? Like a horse that went to the makeover, the actual value price to put on that horse's head, it's okay, but it's not great, you know. But if you get a horse clocking around 3-6 show jumping horses clean, suddenly like that horse is worth some money to people. And if you could make that more of the goal instead of just those first couple years, then it would be huge.
So
I love that you said that. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I have to give a plug. First off, I love that you said that so much because the farm that I work for, Bon Chance, shameless plug, we did kind of an experiment similar to that. We had a horse that we bred named Judge Johnny. He's an Empire Maker. He's a half to a Breeders' Cup winner. So this is a horse that we were very hopeful about. And kind of like Sibelius, he RNA'd, which means, for those of you who don't know, that means when they go to a public auction or sale, you can put a price that you would basically bottom dollar take for them. And if they don't meet that price, then they don't sell or they RNA, reserve not attained. So he RNA'd. We decided we're going to race him ourselves. This creature absolutely did not want to be a racehorse. Couldn't even like get off the stall ground in the morning. Like he'd sleep in. But he just had the best disposition and he was beautiful. So we kind of retired him. We already have an aftercare seat and I'm doing it. We have a second career minded focus on our farm. And so we put him in training with Carly Fedorka, who was a local trainer in Lexington, Kentucky at the time. She's now in Colorado. But she came to us and said, this is one of the nicest things I've had off the track, and pitched to us, maybe as a joke, maybe seriously, that we should attempt the young event horse program with him, which is traditionally for warm bloods. And we kind of laughed about it and said, okay, why not thinking anything would come of it. And we ended up putting him in training for over a year towards that goal. He qualified on the first try. He made it to Maryland, to Fairhill, where the event was held, the East Coast Championships, during the first 5-star event there. And he did incredibly well. He was, I think, 6th. He was the top placed US bred horse in the 4-year-old division. And that entire experience was incredible. First off, like that horse is so special to me. Carly afterwards bought him from us, and she's gone up now to the 2-star level in eventing. But the point of this entire story was for me to watch my coworkers and people who had no experience really in the sport horse world just totally buy into that process and get really excited when he would go to shows. And after, you know, he would go to shows, they would be texting me, how did he do? You know, how was the placing? Like they were following the scores. And to hear when he trotted down center line at Fairhill amongst, I mean, obviously the 5-star was going on, so there's Olympic riders. It was a cool environment anyways, but to hear them say Judge Johnny, bred and owned by Bon Chance Farm, like I burst into tears. And I didn't think I was going to have that reaction, but just kind of to your point, we love these horses, and especially as breeders too, like we love competition. And to see a horse like him who like really did not want to be a racehorse, and to find something that you could just see in his entire body he loved doing. That's why I was so excited when you said that, because I was like, sign me up. I would love an opportunity. And I think as a farm, we would probably love an opportunity. You know, it has to be the right horse, but I think that's not a unique situation. A lot of people in the racing and breeding industry of thoroughbreds would be totally pumped to continue to support them in a really meaningful way like that.
Yeah. So let's throw some numbers at this real quick. We are going to start running out of time, and I want to make sure, because I think it's really valid, but like, let's talk about, you know, rough numbers, Allie, of what a thoroughbred, what a sound retired thoroughbred holds straight away, what that horse holds after a year of training and they're getting around, you know, even like a 2-6 course clean, kind of what they might hold and value there. And then what expenses, like monthly, like in training expenses would there be?
Yeah, that might be a little tough because I've been bopping around and I actually haven't had to sell a horse for quite a while. I've been lucky enough for that. Well, I have from the racetrack. I've been rehoming out of Jerry's barn here at Palmettos, and I struggle down here because most of the interest in the thoroughbreds are going to be north. Kentucky and beyond, all the way north. A lot of people in Florida, some in Ocala are buying thoroughbreds, but here in Wellington, it is definitely the warm blood world. So, straight from the track, I sell between 2 to 5,000, as long as it's sound, 2 to 5,000. 5,000 is pretty hard for me to get down here because, like I said, they're shipping north. So they have about $1,000 shipping fee to get it to where they want it up, somewhere else. So I have pretty low, I've been selling horses lower than normal down here just to help compensate the shipping cost for people. I'd say with a year of training, say like post thoroughbred makeover, I think you can reasonably get between like 10 to 30 maybe, depending on obviously age. They got to be in the sweet spot, right? Like 4 or younger is going to be too young because the jumping really starts at 4 and beyond. People really shouldn't be jumping 3-year-olds too much, if at all. And I also struggle too, because I often rehome 2-year-olds down here that are not fast enough and not showing, and we're good to retire them early, which is what you want, right? Like if the horse doesn't want to do it, or it's not going to hold up as a 2-year-old, you want to sell it. But the problem is the show horse people struggle to take 2-year-olds. So that's another gap, I think, we're not going to use the A word, but in the second career, outlet.
Owners having a place where they can turn their horses out for 6 months.
I don't know. I don't really know what the answer is, but I do think, if we're going to tell these trainers that they need to retire sooner, we need to have a demand for 2-year-olds that's not competition riding based. So that's another issue I've come across. So something to think about, because professionals, it comes down to the bottom line. Like they can't feed and board, especially if you don't have your own farm. You can't board a 2-year-old for 2 years before you can start really jumping it. It's a tough, so that's a tough spot to consider. But I digress. And, so if it is sound and amateur friendly and jumping around 2-6 courses at the makeover, I think 30 to 35,000 is reasonable.
That's huge. And that can be done in a year. And, but there's also dressage. There's also plenty of flat work shows and stuff that thoroughbreds can totally funnel into. I know I'm in awe every time my horse does something my leg asks him to do. I'm like, wow, you can leg yield? Like what? You're just right off of the track. Like
Genius.
They just do. They listen and they learn. So we're going to add in our show notes some links to the TIP, the RRP, the different shows that are available for off-track thoroughbreds so that people can have that information. Allie, I want you to tell us about 2 things. I want you to tell us about your new little baby you've been working on, your post-racing. You're going to tell me this.
Yes.
And I want you to tell us a little bit about RRP and that experience. I know you're taking Sibelius through it right now, so he's going to be there hopefully. And so tell us a little bit about RRP and your new baby.
Yeah, so we'll get back to Sibelius. We'll end with our, boy wonder. But yeah, kind of what we were talking about when we were talking about second careers and trying to find, that next step after the makeover and, get the thoroughbreds back in, the limelight and the high performance. I mean, thoroughbreds used to be really desirable in show jumping competitions. And so with the help of Blair King and Megan DeWolf, we started Sport of Kings, which is a nonprofit. And we're going to be working with hopefully large venues to create financial incentives for thoroughbreds that go beyond Take Two. Take Two exists right now, and we're hoping to offer even more money and go beyond that. So it's in its infancy, but our plan is to work specifically with thoroughbred industry players to find that money. And instead of the aftercare organizations, which are funding the prize money. We're trying to get direct financial involvement from owners themselves.
Yeah, I do
Really
know
cool.
there's certain stallions that are desirable when it comes to OTTBs for different reasons. Like I remember people being like, "Oh, you have a Medaglodoro, like that's so awesome." And I think the more this comes to fruition, some of those stud farms wouldn't be crazy to sponsor some of these events, and
For
sponsor some
sure.
of these courses. There's certainly cash available to stallion farms. I do pay the bills. Um, and I do know I'm going to hook you up with a couple people that are working on something with the USEF. They really want to get off the ground that has to do with exactly this, which is thoroughbreds being, it's like a class for them and they get to take home extra money and stuff like that. I love it. I'm excited for you to start that. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I have definitely Blair and Megan to credit mostly because I'm a little scatterbrained, but they are getting it done and we're working and having meetings with people. So yeah, back to Sibelius, boy wonder. He's in the backyard right now and he's been great. We've been doing a lot of groundwork and starting him on the flat. I'm obviously a bit of a DQ myself. I love the dressage and I love the flat work. So, until we have a consistent flat work, until we can go win a training level dressage test at least, I probably won't be doing too much jumping. I have been like rope haltering him over cavalettis and he has got great form. I think actually like the show hunters could be his line of path. So I'm hoping to get some help in Kentucky because we are returning to Kentucky for the summer at least. Yay. Yeah, so I love Kentucky. It'll be a lot easier. I do really struggle in South Florida for the summer because I don't have my own arena. So I have to hack to an arena and sometimes we get some flooding with the summer rains and it is just really hard to keep going in the summer here. So, and we lose a lot of our schooling shows because they're all winter scheduled. So I managed to get a win out of working from down here, but it was hard. It was really hard. So I'm looking forward to get to Kentucky where Masterson Station is next door and I can.
It's a huge asset here. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a huge asset and the schooling shows and it'll be good to be back with people I know and I'm excited. So he'll take that next step soon. But yes, in the meantime, this week we're packing. So he might hang out for the week.
So RP, so you're sharing your journey on Facebook, is that right? Like people can pop into.
Yes, I was a little bad. I haven't updated it in a while, but Sibelius has his own Facebook. It is called Sibelius. Let me pull it up. Sibelius second. Okay, let me just pull this up. I'm sorry. Can you still see me?
Yeah, we can see. We're going to link the Facebook page. You just send us the link. We'll link it in the show notes.
It's Sibelius's Second Symphony, Life After the Winner's Circle, and that's his Facebook page. And like I said, I can link it to you. I do have a pinned post at the top to donate to the Thoroughbred Makeover. If anybody appreciated this podcast and is interested in donating to Sibelius's Thoroughbred Makeover fundraiser, that would be very nice. And I have it linked up
does
there.
a little fundraiser, right? Every entrant, the trainer is asked to do a little.
Yeah, it's you don't have to, but it's nice, and especially with a horse of his familiarity, people are familiar with him. So and then if you raise a certain amount, you get your entry fee back, but it's all for a good cause. He has his own Instagram that's similar as well. So we'll get all of that linked. And it's been a little chaotic, so it's not fully up to date, but it will be when I get back to Kentucky.
Gosh, this was a lot of fun covering Thoroughbred second opportunities and careers. But before we go, we do have a couple of fun hot seat questions for you.
Yes. I mean, I'm a talker. I could go all day. So let's do it.
And this is such a cool, honestly, I think all of us are so passionate about just the thoroughbred as a breed, but especially life after racing. And we could probably go on for hours, but unfortunately we have to get back to our lives.
So we're going to keep it short.
Okay, that's fine.
We want people to listen.
Okay. So, Allie, tell us which racehorse made you fall in love with the sport of racing originally?
Ooh, that is tough. Man.
Be a familiar horse, just like one that you remember and captured you?
Yeah. Oh, and of course now I'm blanking on his name, but he was the bee's knees when I was in college and he won okay, I'm sure you could help me.
Yeah.
And I guess it doesn't count if I can't remember his name, but he's Chestnut Gelding would have been winning the big Keeneland horse every year.
Wise Dan?
Yes. Yes.
Horse of the year, Wise Dan, a great choice.
Yes. Yeah. I'm so sorry. I'm bad with human names as well. It's not just horse related, but
Totally fine.
Because he was just the talk of the town, and I was in college and going to Keeneland and learning, about the races. Because even though I did take a year off before college, I was a working student, so I never left the farm. So, I knew racing was happening, but I didn't get to see it. So that freshman year of college, I made my first trips to Keeneland, and Wise Dan was a big deal.
He was so cool. He's definitely a hometown hero, man. What a cool horse.
Yeah. Absolutely. And Jerry has galloped him, and because John Ennis was his normal work rider, and he was very hard, very, very hard in the morning from what I heard.
Stop it. So these boys, John Ennis and Jerry, who were they started as work riders and now they're trainers, top trainers. That's so cool. Literally, there is a spot for anyone in this business if you want it. You just come and get started anywhere. I love that. Okay. And this one we might already know the answer. Who is your current or most recently racing top horse that you love, that everyone would know?
And or retired, who's in your backyard?
Yeah. Of course. Sibelius, media darling, media darling. I think what makes him so special is I really consider Sibelius as the people's horse. He loves people. He is the best face for racing because his favorite thing to do in the morning when he would go to the track is stand out. So even in Dubai where you have the whole media, the media would be right on the bend where the horses would come on and off the track. And most of them would just trot or gallop right past the media and just avoid them, and the horses are all cuckoo. And Sibelius would just saunter up and stand. People are petting him. Nobody believed he was an entrant. We're no, this is a real racehorse that you were, And then he went and he won. And I think nobody took him seriously because he's a big puppy when he sits there, and he loves attention and he just watches. And
I love that.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, media darling, he's a great face for, the sport for sure.
I love that.
Oh my gosh, that's so great. I just wanted to mention, I know this has gotten long. It's fine. Just before we go, because I think the makeover, we've kind of alluded to it a few times, but we haven't really explained it. So if you are listening and you're not really sure what the Thoroughbred Makeover is, it is a competition put on by the Retired Racehorse Project. We'll link their website, but it happens at the Kentucky Horse Park every year. It is in October. I believe this year's dates are the 8th through the 11th. So if you are interested in coming out and seeing what that is about, there are 10 different disciplines. They compete in everything from dressage, show jumping, field hunters, ranch work. I've missed some. There's also retired broodmares competing. It's a really cool competition. There's lots of prize money, but also Sibelius will be there and a lot of other really cool horses. So if you're in the area October 8th through 11th this year, definitely come by the horse park and see the makeover. And it is such a special week. It's one of my favorite weeks all year.
Absolutely. And if you have an off-track thoroughbred that you want to enter, I think you can still enter through June. So get on there, look at the rules. Okay. So Allie, thank you for coming and chatting with us about, your love of the thoroughbred and reminding all of the people out there that will please God listen to this, that the thoroughbred is an incredibly versatile animal and more than just racing to our thoroughbred industry. I'm super pumped. Next podcast, keep an eye out and give it a listen. We're going to be putting you in to the owner's shoes. We've got some partnerships coming in and talk about how to get in the game, what you can expect behind the scenes as a partner, everything from big group racing partnerships to the micro share partnerships. So it's going to come out Derby week. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Hope to see you guys there.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Alison, and good luck